It's easier to say, oh, we're gonna show everybody that we know this league is good with or without Caitlin Clark. We're gonna prove it. But once you talk to your owner buddies and they say, look how much we made. I mean, Indiana Fever came to town. Look how much we're making, right? Once Renee Montgomery and Sheila Johnson talk to the owner of the Las Vegas Aces, talk to the owner of the Chicago Sky, and they say, hey, what was that gate looking like? Oh, damn. That's a lot of money. Indiana had 9 road games moved to larger arenas last year, but just 4 so far for 2026. WNBA teams are moving more games to different arenas this upcoming season, but Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever have significantly fewer of those games. The WNBA's regular season schedule announced Wednesday, including 19 games moved to different arenas, up from 50.
The public-facing mantra is easy, almost reflexive. This league was good before, and it will be good after. Our growth is bigger than any one player. It's a statement of unity, of institutional confidence. You can imagine it being echoed in boardrooms and press conferences, a protective chorus against the narrative of a single savior. It sounds like pride, and perhaps it is. But in the cold, hard calculus of professional sports, a world governed by gate receipts, premium suite sales, and local television ratings, such statements often collide with a more inconvenient truth. The market speaks louder than mission statements. The tension lies in the gap between what is said and what is counted, between the we of collective growth and the I of an owner looking at a balance sheet. This dissonance is now playing out in the most tangible way possible, in the very buildings where the games are played. The release of the WNBA's 2026 regular season schedule has unveiled a pattern that demands scrutiny, a pattern that suggests a league attempting a high-wire act of narrative control versus economic reality. On the surface, the league is expanding a successful strategy. The number of regular season games being moved from teams' usual, smaller home arenas into larger.
The Washington Mystics, Connecticut Sun, and Atlanta Dream each moved 1 game against Indiana last year, but none for the upcoming season. The New York Liberty, Portland Fire, Mercury, Valkyries, and Minnesota Lynx are already in NBA arenas, removing any need to move games for bigger crowds. Is part of this due to injuries? Well, they would like you to believe that, I think. They would like you to believe, oh, well, she got injured last year. We don't want to move. We don't want to commit to a bigger arena. God forbid she gets.
NBA-sized venues has increased from 15 last season to 19 for 2026. This is the growth headline. More big games in bigger buildings for more fans. A win, unequivocally. But drill into the details, and the math becomes curiously selective. This increase is not distributed evenly. It is heavily weighted away from the team that, by every available metric, proved itself to be the league's most potent economic engine on the road last season, the Indiana Fever. In 2025, the Fever's arrival in a city became an event. 9 of their road games were shifted into larger arenas to accommodate unprecedented demand, a testament to the phenomenon surrounding rookie Caitlin Clark. The Fever averaged 15,184 fans on the road, a staggering 4,000 more per game than any other team. They weren't just drawing well, they were an outlier, a touring showcase that reliably turned home games into near-guaranteed sellouts, regardless of the home team's stature. For 2026, that pipeline has been sharply constricted. Only 4 Fever road games are scheduled.
Have names like Renee Montgomery, part owner of the Atlanta Dream. Names like Sheila Johnson, part owner of the Washington Mystics. Sheila Johnson, the same person who threw a fit that Caitlin Clark was named Time Magazine's Woman Athlete of the Year. And she said, why give it to Caitlin Clark? Let's give it to the whole entire league. If you ask me, this is a subtle play from folks like Sheila Johnson and Renee Montgomery. Because at the end of the season, they decreased the amount of Fever games that have been moved to bigger arenas. Yet in totality, they increased the league from 15 games to 19 games.
Games are scheduled for upgraded arenas, 9 down to 4. Meanwhile, the league's total moves climbed from 15 to 19. This is not a flattening of the strategy. It is a deliberate reallocation. The league is publicly championing arena upgrades as a sign of health, while quietly pulling back on the vehicle that most convincingly proved the demand existed in the first place. The official explanation, where one is offered, leans on the crutch of caution. Caitlin Clark's groin injury, which ended her rookie season after just 13 games, becomes the convenient cover story. The framing is one of prudent risk management. Asterisk. We'd love to commit to the big building, but what if she's hurt? We can't be left holding a 20,000-seat bag. Asterisk. It's a reasonable business consideration on its face, but it's a narrative that dissolves under the weight of last season's evidence. The real-world test has already been run. Clark did get injured, yet the crowds for Fever Road games did not evaporate. Those moved games still drew, still sold tickets, still generated revenue. In fact, Clark only played in 3 of the 9 relocated games before her injury. The demand was not merely for Clark in isolation. It had metastasized into demand for the Fever, for the event itself.
4 times this season. You see how massive the season was? You see how much of a success it was this year? And we only had Caitlin Clark. See, we don't really need her. I told you guys we were going to do this without her. Interesting. The decrease in moved Fever games comes after Caitlin Clark played in just 13 games last season. Clark appeared in just 3 of the 9 moved road games, including July 15th against the Connecticut Sun at TD Garden. Clark injured her groin in the 4th quarter of that game and missed the remainder of the season. The Fever remained the league's biggest attendance draw last year, averaging 15,884 fans.
For being part of the story, the market demonstrated a resilience that the current schedule seems to ignore. So, if the rationale isn't truly about mitigating injury risk, a risk that proved financially manageable, then we must look elsewhere. The question shifts from logistics to ideology. Why is the one team that consistently produced the strongest, most verifiable road demand being given fewer opportunities to scale that demand up in a season where the league is supposedly leaning into growth? To understand this, you must follow the influence. Venue decisions do not materialize from a vacuum. They are the product of conversations among ownership groups, team presidents, and league stakeholders, individuals with distinct visions for what the WNBA is and should be. These are not neutral actors. They are architects with blueprints. Consider the names now woven into the fabric of league governance. Renee Montgomery, former star and now part owner of the Atlanta Dream. Sheila Johnson, co-owner of the Washington Mystics. Johnson, in particular, made her philosophical stance clear when she publicly questioned Caitlin Clark being named Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year, arguing the recognition should be spread across the entire league. It was a statement that privileged collective identity over individual stardom, a noble sentiment that can also double as a business strategy. Now, examine the schedule through that lens.
If I'm an owner of an NBA arena, if I'm in charge of selecting what events gets put in these arenas, well, without a CBA deal reached, why would I want to start already Xing out dates with potential WNBA games when I can keep those dates open for when a Jonas Brothers come to town, when a Taylor Swift comes to town, when a Luke Bryan or whoever come to town? Why would I start Xing out these dates? I wouldn't. It's not smart. I want to keep those dates open as long as I possibly can.
Atlanta Dream. Last season, moved 1 home game against Indiana to the Hawks State Farm Arena. This season, 0 moved games against Indiana. Washington Mystics. Last season, moved 1 home game against Indiana to Capital One Arena. This season, 0. Connecticut Sun. Last season, moved the now infamous game to Boston's TD Garden, where Clark was injured. This season, nothing comparable on the schedule. This retreat is telling. If the Fever were universally seen as the safest, highest yield bet for filling a big building, which last year's attendance data screams they are, you would expect these franchises to clamor for that date, injury risk or not. The quiet disappearance of these games suggests a choice is being made. A choice that may have less to do with fear of an empty arena and more to do with promoting a specific narrative. See, we can fill buildings without her. The momentum is ours. not hers. The pattern extends beyond those with vocal ownership. Chicago and Dallas each had 2 games moved to bigger venues for Indiana last year. Each gets only 1 this year. The dip is coordinated, not coincidental. Simultaneously, the league is proving it has no fundamental aversion to bold arena moves. Look at the expansion Toronto team, which will play 5 games in different venues across Canada, including in Montreal and Vancouver. Here, the league is aggressively using venue strategy to stoke national interest and claim new markets. The tool is the same. The willingness to deploy it is visibly different. For Toronto, it's proactive growth. For Indiana, it's now being treated with what looks like calculated restraint. Zoom in on the 4 Fever games that did survive the shift to larger venues. July 5th in Las Vegas, August 8th in Chicago, August 18th and 20th against Toronto and Dallas. Notice the timing. Everyone lands well past the season's opening months. Last year, the league strategically front-loaded the big arena games, capitalizing on the white-hot early season spotlight on Clark. This year, the approach is inverted. It creates a dynamic where the early narrative will be set in smaller, often sold-out home arenas, a visual of organic, contained demand. The spectacle of the
Dates open for possible bigger events. And if nobody takes those dates, fine. Then we'll slide a couple Indiana Fever games in here. But until then, we're keeping these dates open.
The NBA-sized crowd is pushed to the back half, acting more as a second-act booster shot than the opening statement. This timing is inextricably linked to another, more practical form of caution: pure business uncertainty. The WNBA's collective bargaining agreement has not yet been finalized for the 2026 season. This injects a layer of scheduling risk that arena managers despise. If you operate a major arena, your prime weekend dates are your most valuable currency. You are constantly weighing events: a guaranteed sellout concert by a major touring artist, a family show, a sporting event with a locked-in date. A WNBA game, especially one whose season timeline could theoretically shift due to labor negotiations, represents a riskier commitment. The calculus for an arena manager is simple. Why would I pencil in a potential WNBA game in May or June today, when I can keep that date open for a Taylor Swift, a Jonas Brothers, or a major conference that will pay a premium and book with certainty? If those bigger acts don't materialize, I can always slot the Fever game in later. But if I commit to the Fever early and the season gets delayed, I'm left with dead inventory, refunds, and angry partners. The current schedule, by keeping many high-demand Fever games in smaller venues early or off the big arena slate entirely, accommodates this arena manager anxiety. It treats these games as flexible inventory rather than must-book tentpoles. Yet, history shows this entire process is fluid. Last season's schedule wasn't finalized in December. Teams like Atlanta and Dallas announced moves of Fever games into NBA arenas in March of 2025, months after the schedule was released. They were market corrections. The Chicago Sky famously announced in February 2025 that they were moving their first 2 games against Indiana to the United Center. These were not part of the original plan. They were reactions to overwhelming ticket demand. The league itself acknowledges this fluidity. A Fever spokesperson noted that while the schedule is set, opponents can still adjust venues before the season begins. The door is left conspicuously ajar. This creates the central, quiet conflict. There are influential voices within ownership circles who have spent a year championing the idea of a rising tide that lifts all boats. This framing is protective. It honors legacy players, validates long-suffering franchises, and builds a sustainable brand not tied to one person's fame. But revenue is agnostic to philosophy. Owners who hosted the Fever last season saw the ledger difference firsthand. Exploded gate receipts, premium suite sales, merchandise spikes, and heightened local sponsor interest. Now, they face a paradox. Every time an owner publicly states, the league cannot be dependent on one player, they create a rhetorical box. If they then turn around and move their Indiana game to a 20,000-seat arena, they tacitly admit that, for one night at least, their revenue is dependent on that player's drawing power. But if they don't move the game, they are consciously choosing to leave hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions, of dollars on the table. It's the choice between ideological purity and financial optimization. The financial gap is not trivial. Moving a game from a 9,000-seat college gym to an 18,000-seat NBA arena and selling it out doesn't just double revenue. It can triple or quadruple it when factoring in premium seating, concessions, and sponsorships activated at scale. For franchises that have operated for decades on thin margins, this isn't just growth money. It's transformational capital that can fund better facilities, deeper staff, and long-term player investments. What we are witnessing, therefore, is a grand, unspoken experiment. The league is testing a hypothesis. Did Caitlin Clark create a durable, league-wide audience that will stay engaged even when her team is not centrally featured? Or did she attract a casual, star-driven following that requires her presence as the main event to tune in or buy a ticket? The 2026 schedule is the laboratory setup. By reducing the number of Fever spectacles early on, the league is trying to force the narrative and the audience to broaden. It is betting that new storylines, the expansion in Toronto, the rivalry in New York, the dynasty in Las Vegas, can carry the weight. It is a bet on the stickiness of fandom. If it works, the league wins its most powerful argument yet, that it has achieved a stable, product-driven baseline, independent of any single star. The growth story becomes clean, broad, and unassailable. But it is a high-stakes gamble. The control group for this experiment is last season, which already provided compelling data. Even without Clark for most of it, the Fever remained the league's biggest road draw. The demand was proven before the injury. To now choose to restrain that proven demand is a risk. The league isn't trying to create demand from scratch. It is actively choosing to cap it in order to see if it redistributes to other teams. That redistribution is the core of the gamble. This experiment will be measured in two key metrics: attendance and ratings. The ratings narrative from last season was complex. The league rightly touted record viewership, but the load-bearing detail was which games drove those records. Fever games consistently topped the charts, including games Clark did not play, as viewers tuned in hoping for her return or to follow the ongoing saga. This season, with fewer premium big arena Fever games in national windows early, the league will get a cleaner read. Are people watching WNBA basketball, or are they watching Caitlin Clark's orbit? The outcomes will be framed accordingly. If ratings and non-Fever attendance hold, the message will be one of triumphant validation. If they soften, the explanations will be ready. CBA uncertainty, scheduling quirks, a natural post-bubble correction, and then watch for the safety valve. The late winter and early spring announcements of venue upgrades for Fever games. That will be the market forcing a pivot. The quiet admission that the hypothesis was flawed. In the end, this is a story about the tension at the heart of modern sports business. It's the clash between narrative and numbers, between collective identity and market reality. Owners can sincerely believe in the rising tide and still have their hands forced by a tidal wave of cash. The public postures and philosophical debates matter intensely until the financial projections land on the table. The coming months will be a masterclass in reading between the lines. Watch for which teams, facing softer than expected season ticket sales for their standard venues, suddenly find availability in a larger arena for that Indiana date. Listen for the language to shift from caution to opportunity. The real story of the WNBA's 2026 season won't be written in the press releases issued this winter. It will be written in the quiet, midstream schedule adjustments that always reveal the truth. Because in professional sports, you can champion any narrative you want. You can talk about legacy, equality, and collective growth. But when the choice is between a 9,000-seat gate and a 19,000-seat gate, between red and black ink, the conversation always stops being philosophical. It becomes operational. And the market, ultimately, holds the microphone. The WNBA is attempting a brave and perhaps necessary experiment to prove its maturity. But in doing so, it is playing a dangerous game with its most reliable catalyst. This season will reveal whether the league has built a fire that can burn on its own, or if it still needs its brightest spark to keep the flames alive. The arenas, the ticket sales, and the late schedule changes will tell us the answer long before any official pronouncement does.